We're going to introduce just a few people to start with. Wrong way. The king, his name is Ahab. And if you asked, what does the Bible say about Ahab? It's simple. He did evil before God. He was a really bad man. Didn't live for God. He was in charge of Israel. But he didn't care for the God of Israel at all. He married a woman. Her name was Jezebel. She was from a country next door to the north, Sidon. And she didn't love God. She did evil before God all her life as well. There's two people that you wouldn't want ruling the country that you live in. But that's what they were. Do you know, when she came, the place where God was supposed to be worshipped in the land of Israel, she worshipped Baal. Baal was an awful god to worship. You know, there's awful things. You know, sometimes even little children, babies, were offered as a sacrifice to this god. But they thought this God was great. He's the one who brought the rain and the dew in the morning, which watered the ground, which made everything grow. And that's the God that they worshipped. But there was something else, or someone else should we say, in that country. His name was Elijah. And Elijah was a prophet of the true God. And that meant that he would go around and he would tell people what God had to say to them. And I'm sure at that time what God was saying to the people then was that you need to turn back to God because you've broken his laws. You're worshipping a false God. He didn't just go and tell the people. He actually went right into the king's palace one day, right up to the king, to tell him what God had to say to him. And God was to say this to him: there'll be no dew, no rain, until I say so. Could you imagine what the king was thinking? What? You're in control of the weather? Baal's the one who's the god of the dew and the rain. Well, Elijah walked out. And I'm sure as they started to think, what do? We can't have people doing that. But by that time, he was gone. And God was telling Elijah that he had to go. And he told him that he had to go from where he was in Samaria, where the palace was, all the way across the river Jordan to the Brook, Cherith. And there, God was going to supply him with everything he needed. And so, when he got there, there was this little stream, and there was water for him to drink. We need water to live, don't we? God supplied the water. In that little stream, it came because God was in control of everything. The food, though, that was a little bit more miraculous, because every day, ravens, they're like big crows, would come. They would fly down, and they would bring bread, and they would bring meat. God supplied it. Do you know, something that we often do in this world today is we forget that everything that we have comes from God. It doesn't just come out the tap or off the shelf in the supermarket. God supplies everything that we need. God had said there would be no rain or dew in the morning. And that's exactly what happened. You see, when God speaks, God's word is always true. And the crops didn't grow. We've seen a little bit this week on TV, haven't we, how the crop, where there's no rain, the ground starts to go brown because the grass dies. That happened there. And it got worse and worse. Back in the palace, though, Herod was really angry with Elijah. Why was he angry with Elijah? Because Elijah had said there would be no rain, nor dew in the morning. And there wasn't. Do you know, Ahab never sat down and thought, how can this man Say that, and it happened. Maybe God is at work. Never thought about that at all. And sometimes people today, when problems come in their lives, never ask the question, is God angry with me? Sometimes we get disease, wars, famines, lots of things like this. And we need to ask the question, is it because of sin in our lives that God is punishing us? He just blamed God. Lots of people today don't believe in God, but whose fault is it? It's God's fault. Strange, but that's what people think. Do you know, even in that little stream at Cherith, the water was drying up. And God hadn't forgotten Elijah, and God said to Elijah, I want you to pack up and go up north. And I'm going to prepare a woman who will look after you, a widow. So the next day, he set off from the river Cherith all the way up the Jordan, past the Lake of Galilee, up and then across to a place called Zaraphath. That was part of the land where Sidon was. That's where Jezebel would have come from. Do you think there'd be somebody up there who would love God, who would be willing to look after him? Do you know, when he got there, he saw this woman, and he knew that this was the one that God had said would look after him. And so she was there, she was collecting some wood together to make a fire, to make something to eat. And Elijah said to her, could you get me a drink of water, please? And she looked and said, oh yes. And off she went. And just as she was going, he said, oh, can you get me some bread as well? Oh, and that's when her face changed. Oh no. You see, she only had a little bit of flour left, a little bit of oil left, and she was going to use that for one last, piece of bread, loaf of bread. And she was going to use that for her last meal for her and her son. But she knew he was a man of God, because she said that when she met him. And not much food left. And then Elijah said to her, make me a cake of bread first. And then he said to her, and the flour and the oil will never run out. Would she believe him? Do you know she did? And she made some bread for him that day. And then she made some bread for herself and her son, and they had a meal. Do you know, God supplies all our needs, sometimes miraculously, and sometimes just through normal things every day. But God is still supplying our needs. Do you know, the next day they got up, there was still flour left in the bowl. There was still some oil in the jar, and she made some more food. God was praised and thanked because it was a work of God. And every day after that, there was a little bit of flour left, there was a little bit of oil left, enough to make the bread for today. God was good to them. God's good to us as well at home, isn't he? In our houses, God's good to us. He gives us all that we need and everything we have. One day, though, he went out, and when he came back, the little boy was dead. And the woman looked and said, it's all your fault, Elijah. You've come just to show me that I've broken God's laws. Because you see, when she was living with Elijah, she saw how a Christian ought to be living his life. And she realized she was a sinner. And she thought it was because of what she had done. And Elijah didn't want to sit and argue. Do you know what he did? He went upstairs with the boy, laid him on the bed, and he prayed. The first thing when he had a problem that Elijah ever did was to pray to God, because he knew God hears his prayers and he hears everything which he says. That would be the first thing he did. What would be the first thing that you would do in a situation when things were going wrong? How can I sort this problem? What do I need to do? Who can help me? It should be, God, can you help me? Show me what we need to do. I wonder what his second thing would be to do. Well, he continued to pray. And he prayed until God answered. He asked God to bring back this little boy from the dead. And God did it. It was a miracle. Never happened before. It would happen later when Jesus was alive, because he would raise a little girl from the dead and a young man as well. But God is great, and God can do great things. Do you know, he brought the little boy downstairs, and his mum was really pleased. I think you would be pleased, wouldn't you, if your little boy had died, now was alive? You'd be really pleased. But there was something else which she realised, and that was Elijah's God was the true God, and Elijah served this God. And that's what people should see when they look at us, that we serve the true God. And is that what people see in us when we live our lives?